Okay, guys. Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Where the Scary Things Are. I'm your host, MonsterMash Ken, and with me is my co-host, the Mistress of Darkness, the Queen of Fright, the Lady of the Night, Muse. How you doing tonight, lady?
Doing good. Ready to talk horror? Let's get into it, man. I'm ready to do it.
And Chris, the Creature Zisi. How you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Actually, I'm in a really bad mood, but we won't go into that. But I am doing the show from my Greenfield, Wisconsin office. And so I will be here a lot over the foreseeable future. But it's great to be with you guys again. And like Muse, let's talk good horror tonight.
Good horror. I'm actually glad you brought that up because I want to get into good horror. And normally we have a guest on the show, and it's been a weird week, but we wanted to put something out for you guys. And I was thinking of a topic to talk about. And I watched a movie. You know, we watch horror movies all the time. Chris, you watch the most bizarre movies. Muse, you're kind of in the middle somewhere. I like to watch some of the new stuff every now and then just to make sure I'm still cool and vibing. But I sat down with Jen and Andrew and Erica, and that's my little horror movie crew that I got. And we watched the new movie, X, the one that just came out from Ty West. And I want to talk about that. And I want to kind of get into that new wave of films that are coming out. And we'll kind of throw some thoughts back and forth. We'll Chris, if you have a review you want to throw out there too later on. And Muse, I don't know if you got I forgot what it was called again. The Furious 3, the gruesome quadruple.
It's just not sticking, man. Fatal Four. Fatal
Four-way. Okay, I'll remember Fatal Four-way from now on.
Fatal Four-way. Yeah, exactly. Let's do a wrestling term for sure. Yeah.
Wrestling term. Yeah, I knew you'd catch that.
Yeah.
So I watched X, and this is Ty West. He put out this movie, A24. A24 is putting out a lot of films, a lot of horror films. I'm not sure how you guys feel about these, but the big ones that they're putting out there. So I don't care about spoilers too much. I'm going to throw out some idea or some thoughts that I had about X. Chris, this movie, I thought about you right away. And for a couple of reasons. I'm going to poke fun at you a little bit, just a little bit. It had a creep factor. It had the music was really good. The background music was really like haunting. There was like this theme they had of like this breathing, which kind of played into the film. But when you think of X, like rated X, like adult films, porn, what have you, the thought of this movie, or the premise of this movie, is these young people are trying to make it big, and this is believe the date was 1978 or 79. So there was, certain porn films going on and whatnot. And they're going out to make a porn film. And they have their cast, and there's a pretty good cast in the movie in itself. I mean, there were some players in there. Mia Goth, she was pretty good in it. Jenna Ortega, Brittany Snow, you guys might know her from Pitch Perfect. Mia Goth was in Suspiria. She was pretty good. Kid Cudi, and there was a guy from what was it? Martin Henderson. He was in The Ring, right? He was in The Ring. He was the boyfriend. And anyway, so they're out and they're going to make this film, and they want to make a different type of porn film. At least the director does, and he's trying to make it really artsy and whatnot. So they set out to this small town in Texas, this really raunchy or old looking house in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know why anybody would let alone want to visit this house, or let alone have sex in this house. So, there's a lake, there's this old couple, this old man that, they're greeted by this old man with a shotgun, So what does that tell you? Probably not a good idea. And so they start shooting the film, and there's this creepy old woman that's just lingering in the background. She's watching them through the windows. She's in the woods. She's watching one girl go skinny dipping. Now we're trying to guess who's going to die. You know, everybody's going to die in this film. You know what's going to happen. You know, who's having sex first, who's getting naked first, who's the asshole of the film, who's the quiet one. You're trying to pinpoint these characters, like, oh, that person's going to die, or this person's going to die, or she's going to live, she's going to be the last survivor, or whatever. And, you know, A24, they always have like this little twist in the film, like, what's going on here? What's this? Who's that? Why is this happening? And you're trying to guess all this stuff as you're watching it. And it makes it kind of hard to enjoy the film at the same time, because you're trying to figure this stuff out and not just enjoying the film. So this film was uncomfortable at times because of I personally I don't watch porn like naturally in front of everybody. That's kind of like private time stuff. You know what I mean? And I just always think about like when I watch a scary movie. I remember watching Hellraiser, and there was a sex scene in it, and my parents are right there, and it just gets really awkward, right? So I'm just not. I don't know. I'm not there. And there's some really raunchy sex scenes in here, and it's really not super graphic, but you get the idea. And anyway, so the premise of the movie, they're making this porn film. These old people are curious what they're doing. But I think what's happening is these old people are inviting these people into their house, because what happens is there's murders and there's killing and there's really gory, graphic killings. And you're trying to figure out why. Why are these people killing these people? Just because they like it or whatever? Essentially, what's happening is these old people must have been doing this for like a long time. And it's the way they get excited, as in Chris gets excited and wants to do things, you know? And there's a scene in there with the old people, and it's like, I did not want to, I don't think I need to see that. It was, as Chris would say, gratuitous sex from not premarital, very long in marriage, as in 80 to 90 plus marriage, you know? And so that was kind of awkward. But I wanted to just mention, like, that I did like this film. I probably won't watch it again. I loved the gore. There was some really hardcore scenes in there that were like, wow, that's badass. You know, practical effects, lots of killing, lots of blood, and believable. Like, there was a Home Alone scene in there. If you can think of the worst scene in Home Alone, when somebody gets hurt, I'm going to ask you guys, Chris and Muse, what is the most ouch scene in Home Alone? I'm just curious. Muse, what do you think?
The scene I cringed was where he was going up the steps and he gets the nail right through his foot. Oh my God, I felt that. I mean, I don't
Chris,
know if, yeah.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I was gonna say the step scene.
Yeah.
Was there
Okay.
also a scene, or am I thinking of another movie? The sledgehammer came down and conked Joe Pesci in the face.
I remember it was like
that was
Goodfellas or something like that too.
Okay, so we're on the same page, because that is the ouch scene, and there's a scene like that happens, and I'm like, no, and you see it coming, and you're like, no, and it happens. So there's a really good scene there. But anyway, check the film out. Let me know what you guys think about it. Listeners as well. I'm curious to see what you guys think about it. It's something new, you know. It's something new. I think they paid a lot of homage to some of the classic horror films out there. I liked it, but like I said, I'm one and done. So on that note, what do you guys think about this new wave of horror films that are coming out? I was looking it up, and one of the highest grossing horror films, the number one, is It, the new It that just came out. I did not know that. I have to be honest with you, I've never seen it, and I don't know if I want to see it, because I'm such loyal to the first one, to the original one. So I don't think I need to see it. But I couldn't believe that, you know, there were some other ones on there, like Get Out was one of the top 10. And this is in the world. Get Out, A Quiet Place. And I have to be honest, I hadn't seen these movies yet. Midsommar was up there, I believe. And I think Jaws was number 2 or number 1. I can't remember. I think it was number 1, and then Jaws was number 2. Exorcist was in the top 5. So, also Paranormal Activity had done pretty well, and that's a success story in its own because they had such a low budget, and it made so much money. Blair Witch as well, same thing, kind of the same genre there. But I was thinking about, you know, we all kind of grew up, Chris. I mean, you're a little older than us, but not by much, and we grew up watching horror films, and the way we got our horror films is we went to Blockbuster or the video store, right? I don't recall seeing too many horror films in the theater. I think I saw Waxwork in the theater, and then some of the older stuff that came out that just wasn't any good. And then there was this, I don't remember like really good films before Blair Witch, to tell you the truth, that were in the theater, that really scared me, at least. Everything was on VHS, everything came out in the 80s. And then there was just like crap that had came out. You got like, you're on your like 8th Nightmare on Elm Street, or your 10th Jason Takes Manhattan, whatever, all these films that have already been done, and they're just recycling. And then all of a sudden you start getting these new films that come out. So I'm curious to see what movies you guys like. And are you in favor of them being on apps like Tubi or YouTube, Amazon, and then they have their own streaming service with Shudder? Like, I love Shudder. I think Shudder produces some great things. They get their own films too. So, Chris, what do you think? Because I know you love the old guard, the old films, the black and whites, some of the films that are hard to find, that are not too popular. Are you fond of what's coming out now? Do you have any favorite movies that are coming out or have been released? Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, there's beauty in the swamp if you look in the right places. The streaming services are indeed, Netflix is making their own, Shudder's making their own. I got to give Tubi credit; they're making their own, and I think they have brought The Asylum, which made all the made-for-sci-fi TV movies, on board. So you're seeing The Asylum movies starting to come on, made for Tubi TV, and they are true to what you would think a made-for-sci-fi TV movie is, and so I'm very happy at that. The couple of points: you had not seen those movies you mentioned. Either have I. I get very, very suspicious, and this is something I keep an eye on. The movies you mentioned, Get Out, A Quiet Place, they were marketed to non-horror audiences. I know the biggest dweebs in the world who have no idea who Jamie Lee Curtis is, saying, I don't like horror movies, but I like this movie, whether it be Get Out, whether it be It, whether it be A Quiet Place, and name 4 or 5 more. And when I hear that, I said, I'm not going. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to go. It's not going to be scary, and I'm just not going to do it. And I avoid those movies that are marketed and made for mainstream audiences. I've always done that. I think all of us have always done that. One of the first ones, we can go back historically, the biggest one is The Shining from 1979. Was anybody scared by that? Maybe the woman in the bathtub scene, maybe some imagery of the kids on a bicycle. But how many people yawned through that? The Stanley Kubrick movie. It's like, I know Stephen King wasn't happy about it. But it was made to make millions or billions, or I don't know how many back in, what was it, 79, 80, 81. But people like us were going to the low-budget slasher films, and people from the universities and the professors of the world were going to see The Shining because Stanley Kubrick wrote it. And hence, maybe that was the problem. But I have to continuously weed out the movies I want to see. And Tubi seems to be going in a good direction for me. I think Shudder's going in a pretty good direction. I don't know if it'll stay that way. And Netflix, Netflix has a governing board that's very politically correct. I'm not politically correct. To get a movie shown on 4,500 screens, all opening up on Memorial Day weekend, you've got to check the boxes. You've got to put in some agenda. which is probably not an agenda that any of us would agree with. And people like us are going to have to say, well, I just look beyond that and look to the scary parts. You shouldn't have to say that with the movie. You want to go, you want to be fully drawn in and watch it. So anything that comes out with a big budget on 4,500, 5,500 screens nationwide on Memorial Day weekend or May 24th or right before Christmas, I'm going to say no to. And also be very, very careful of when these movies come out to instant glowing reviews. Somebody said about Get Out, best movie ever made. Not best horror movie ever made. Best movie ever made. And I said to myself, no, it's not. I haven't seen that movie, but I know it's not the best movie ever made. And so you're thinking, why did he say that? He doesn't really think that. And that's a good question too. Oh, come on, best. Yeah, no, it wasn't. And excuse me, Get Out fans, but Get Out. It was not the best movie ever made. It was not the best horror movie ever made. And I haven't even seen it. But I think I'm safe to say I'm right on that point. And then you're wondering, is there an agenda behind it that transcends horror and people what the real horror fans want to see? And the real horror fans have to be careful of the phony horror fans because all the big money, the big budget movies, like that one that won the Academy Award, first horror film to win the Best Picture Award. What was that, 4 or 5 years ago? The Color of Water or Water in the Midst or something.
Oh, shape of Water. Shape of Water.
Yeah. Did anybody see that? And if you have seen it, do you remember anything about it? No. And the only reason you say, I saw Shape of Water was very good, is to look smart, and you've got nothing else. And usually the conversation doesn't go beyond that. If you say, I love Crocodile 2 Death Swamp, which was a great movie, people are going to poo-poo you. You say, The Shape of Water was a really good movie. People say, oh, he knows what he's talking about. He's probably got a PhD from somewhere, I've said enough. I think you know how I feel about it. But now, before I sound like the old grouchy guy, sometimes it's done right. I thought The Conjuring and the Conjuring movies were very, very good. I enjoyed them a lot.
That was one of the higher grossing
yes.
top 15 as well. So okay. Both of those actually, yeah.
Exception. It was a good movie. The sequels are pretty good. But you and I and Muse, we watched that and we're not under our seats. We're not constantly closing our eyes. We're the mainstream audience who usually are. They actually are. And I think we all liked it for different reasons. We all liked it because we know about the Amityville Horror. We know about the Warren, Mr. and Mrs. Warren. We know about them. We know their history. We know the controversy surrounding them. And this movie was kind of a neat little drama that touched on that, but actually showed, who they are. So that's how I feel about it. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, and we got you at a good time because I know you're grouchy tonight, and it's a good topic to vent some of that stress out, I'm really indifferent about some of the films, but you did bring up, The Conjuring was a really good film. I just like the first one. I don't care for any other ones, and Insidious was another one that I thoroughly enjoyed. As far as like big budget films, so. I'm going to move on to Muse. Muse, what are your thoughts on some of these big budget big company films that are being released?
Well, I think it's hit or miss. I think that it all depends on what you like and what you're into. And there's definitely some great ones out there that I've enjoyed that are bigger budget. My heart really kind of belongs to independent horror. I really kind of feel like those films don't get enough love. And I think it's just because they don't have like the backing behind them as far as the publicity, the coverage, getting the commercials out there and letting people know they're there. And there's so many films out there that people are missing out on. And that's why, you mentioned it. I love Shudder because of that, because there's going to be films featured on there that you may not see in the theaters, or maybe you missed, or what have you. But Tubi is another great outlet, like Chris said. I really feel like, it's just, because I hear a lot of, I'm just tired of all the big budget stuff, and it's a disappointment. And I heard it was great, and it's not, and stuff. And I mean, I really like some of the new horror, like you've mentioned. I mean, obviously Midsommar. I really like films that really mess with your head. I dig those kind of films, and there's a lot of that out there now. So if you like your mind twisted into a pretzel, you are definitely in luck, because there's a lot of horror that does that, and I dig it. I want to know. I like that feeling of you trying to mess with my head and like what is happening and everything. So it kind of keeps you vested in there. It's creative. It's really cool to watch. I loved Get Out. I loved The Conjuring. I mean, these are all great new films that have come out. I recently watched, and I actually got Jamie into this one, watched Willy's Wonderland with Nicolas Cage. And if you have not seen this movie, I swear to God, I've told everybody to see this, but it's really fun. And I know there's people that are kind of like on the fence about Nick Cage. Some people like him, some people don't. This is a really fun movie. It's different. Is it horror? I don't know if it is, but I mean, it's not like you're going to be hiding, terrifying. It's going to scare you, keep you up at night horror. It's a lot of fun and stuff like that too. But I mean, there's been a lot of great ones. Hereditary, Midsommar, you mentioned them. I'm a huge fan of A24, that studio, film studio. So I definitely like it, but I think that there's just a lot of great stuff out there that just isn't getting the love. And I'm not knocking big budget. I'm not saying just because you're in a theater, you just automatically I'm boycotting or anything like that. Definitely not. There's a lot of upcoming films that are going to be in the theater I do want to see. I'm not ashamed to say it. I know there's people out there that love it, and I am ready to see the new Scream movie. Absolutely. I'm on board. I love sequels. I'm all in. Absolutely. Is it going to be good? I don't know, but I'm going to watch it because I love the franchise. I love the ones everybody hated. You know me, I'm the sequel chick. I'm definitely going to be on board for the sequels. The remakes, not so much, but the sequels, I'm 100% in. So I mean, that's like a big budget one that I'm okay with. But I mean, is the new one going to be any good? I don't know. But I'm gonna give it a try. But my heart really belongs to independent horror, and we've really been able to delve into that on the show. We really feature a lot of great independent horror directors and filmmakers, producers, actors, and actresses. So I think, and I'm not bashing big budget horror or anything like that, and I'm not going to be like, oh, if you go see big budget horror, you're not a real horror fan, because that's not true. I can't stand when people say real horror fan versus non-real horror fan. We all like what we like. Some of us like big budget, some like, independent, some like, funny horror, some like really terrifying. We all have what we like. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I really feel like we need to give the independent horror a chance. I just kind of feel like it just gets like, I just think people are just, I don't know if it's maybe they don't want to venture into territory that, they're just not sure if it's going to be any good or whatever. But, you guys mentioned there's so many free streaming services now. There's no excuse to not see a lot of these films. You've got Tubi, you've got Pluto, you've got Peacock, you've got, and even if you do want to get a subscription, Shudder is really affordable, and it's worth every freaking penny, in my opinion. So
whoa. I believe I believe I'm the one paying for the Shudder.
I got my own though, because I couldn't get into our account. But you do foot the bill. You're right. But I could not figure out how to get ours. And I was like, I'm not going to harass Ken for the 80th time today. So I'm just going to get my own real quick, but it's affordable.
But you're right. It really is. It's like $6-7 and you get some great films. And
compared to like the other streaming services, which are raising their prices, and I won't say any names, but that's it. That's a whole different topic.
Well, we'll just shout out to John Grant in the chat room there, the lone ranger in there. What's up, John? We weren't planning on going live today, so if you're watching our show or at a later time, come and join us on Tuesday nights. It is Monday night, I should say. I'm sorry, just a little change in schedule. But normally we're on Tuesdays at 7. We just had something going on tomorrow. But I love your guys' takes. And Muse, you're definitely right. There are some really cool films. Midsommar. What was the other one? Hereditary. Thank you. They were weird films, but they were good. Like they're like, I would call them slow burns, I guess. and they get to, there's good storytelling, and acting is quality, and you got some pretty good actors in there. But yeah, I'm all over the place with my films. I do like a lot of the stuff that's independent. I do think that I agree with you on giving these independent films a chance. And I think the platforms like Shudder, and even Amazon Prime, they give a good opportunity for these independent films to get out. Chris, you did mention Netflix. They're a little bit more PC. So I don't like a lot of the films that are on Netflix. I liked the Bly Manor, or not the one before the Bly Manor, the Hill House one. That was pretty cool. I wouldn't really call it super scary. There was some scary scenes in it. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of pick your brain on that subject as far as what new movies are out there. I'm not big on remakes like Muse. I don't know, but I will admit that I am excited to watch The Exorcist, the remake that's coming out. I think that's going to be, I hope it's going to be good, because that's just one of the best films ever. And that's something, Chris, that we could say is one of the best films ever, and back it up. Anyway,
before we leave this point,
sure.
This one question I think sums up a lot of what we've been talking about. When you look at the big budget remakes of independent films from 30, 40, 50 years ago, when you think of Dr. Loomis, are you thinking of Donald Pleasance, or are you thinking of Malcolm McDowell? And I'd hazard to say 90% of you all out there are thinking of Donald Pleasance. And now Malcolm McDowell is a great actor, but the 1979 Halloween, we still talk about. The remake of it, we see it, we like it, but we're not talking about it 2 weeks later.
That's a great point. And it is Donald Pleasance. Like I forgot about Malcolm McDowell. Like, he's a great actor in himself, but he's done his great movies there, and Clockwork Orange and all that great stuff. But anyway, I want to move on. I wanted to keep the show nice and short. So we're going to get into the Fatal 4-Way with Muse.
Okay, so this may seem like it doesn't line up with our topic, but it kind of does, because we've talked a little bit about how horror has changed and how it's maybe even stayed the same too a little bit. And one thing that has not changed is sometimes, and there's going to be spoilers here. I try to stick with films I know everybody has seen. If you've not seen these films, I don't even know what to say. You need to get on it, because you're worse than me and I'm a slacker. So I'm going to ruin some endings here for some films, some horror films. But these are ones we should have seen by now. They've been around for quite a while. So no, there's no real new films here. And like I said, you could always fast forward my segment if this starts to get a little bit too spoiler kind of a little bit more of a spoiler for you. But we all know that sometimes, obviously in horror, we're not looking always for a happy ending. We're looking to be scared. And, the reality is things don't always turn out, and everything's not all great and beautiful and rainbows and sunshine in the end. And I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about my top 4 horror films and there's like a thriller in here. You guys might argue with me on one of these films of whether or not it's horror. It's probably more on the lines of a thriller. This is centering on horror movies where the villain wins. And, I kind of like those because to me, they're more realistic. When there's kind of a happy ending, I mean, it's nice and everything. But it just doesn't seem to sit really well all the time. Is this really realistic? And some horror films obviously aren't meant to really be realistic. It's escape into fantasy and to kind of like leave reality for a while. So there's nothing wrong with that. But obviously, so I'm going to be kind of curious to hear what the guys have to say about this as well. So number 1 is, and again, these are definitely oldies but goodies. These are some golden oldies here for some of us, and I hope we've seen them all. The Omen is the first one, obviously. The Omen, we all know how this ends. We think, that Damien is going to be stopped, and of course, he's not. They try to kill Damien in the end. And of course, you're not sure what happens at the very end. They're at the funeral for Gregory Peck's character. And he turns around. He's with apparently another family or somebody taking care of him. And you can see that he's going to continue on with his reign of terror as the Antichrist. So he is definitely you're not going to get rid of him there. And definitely wins there in the end. And it's a great ending. They do kind of mess with you a little bit and make you think that, but obviously evil never dies. Definitely a great message there as far as like horror movies go, and definitely an enduring one. The second film is the one where I think you might, it's definitely not horror, but I think it's more kind of like real life horror. And it's more on the lines of a thriller, but still a great movie, all the same. And I had to throw it in because I love this movie. It's Primal Fear from 1996 with Richard Gere and Edward Norton. And we all know the story. Richard Gere is the lawyer. He's defending Edward Norton, who has committed this murder of this priest. And, he claims he's innocent. It kind of comes out that he's got suffering from like multiple personality disorder type of situation. And, you're rooting for Edward Norton's character the whole time. You really think that this is a troubled young man that just needs help and, and that maybe he didn't do it and everything. They have you completely fooled. And at the end, of course, he slips up at the end. They win the case. He gets off basically. And Edward Norton's character slips up at the end, and Richard Gere catches it, and he realizes that he defended a very guilty murderer, and he's been running a game on everybody the whole time. And we fell, most of us, I'd say, fell for it hook, line, and sinker. We were thinking, okay, but no, it was not. That was not the case. So definitely a great twist there, and definitely the villain winning there, because he's going to walk free, and there's not a damn thing Richard Gere can do about it. He walks out of the courthouse, and he's just like sick because he knows he's basically gotten off a murderer. The third film is definitely a classic, Nightmare on Elm Street, which has got a really great, cool little ending there. Kind of has like one of those things where obviously Freddy is really hard to kill, and we find this out in many more sequels. But the ending where the mom is like sucked through the door, and it still makes me laugh whenever I see it. Because it's just like so silly, but so awesome at the same time. And then of course the teenagers are in the car. You think everything's going to be great. They get in the car, they're going to school, everybody's alive. Johnny Depp didn't get sucked into the waterbed, or not the waterbed, but the bed. And there's not, everybody's alive. Tina's alive. And of course the car starts locking him in, and we all know how that goes. Freddy's alive, and it's going to be a whole lot of terror for many more years to come. And the last one I picked was Fallen from 1998 with Denzel Washington. Love this movie. Does not get enough love. I talked about it on Twitter not that long ago. And the ending is, obviously the detectives are trying to figure out, it centers around like a serial killer. He gets if I remember correctly, he goes to the electric chair and everything. And anyways, it centers around a fallen angel named Azazel, and it turns into like more of a supernatural thriller mystery horror film. And at the end of the movie, you think that that good is going to triumph over evil, but you find out the narrator is actually not the detective. It's actually Azazel narrating the whole thing and talking about how he was almost killed one time by Detective Hobbs, and he failed, and he still exists, and it didn't work, and obviously evil won there. So an honorable mention would probably be Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which had me like mistrusting people for I don't know how many decades. Just like looking at people sideways after watching that movie, like, pod people, and it just weirded me out. We all know how that ended. Obviously the Body Snatchers won. There's nowhere to go. You're not safe. You'll never be safe again. Don't fall asleep ever, or you'll be transformed into this alien being. But I wanted to get your guys' takes on which are some of your favorite horror films where the bad guy wins. I'm going to start with Chris, because I know he's over there. He looks like he's ready to give me an answer.
I know, like nobody ever saw this movie. When I mentioned Humanoids from the Deep, everyone goes, "Oh yeah, wow, that was and there's a whole story regarding that movie." But a lot of people don't know there was a remake, and 15 years later, of Humanoids from the Deep. And if you guys remember Emma Samms, especially from the 80s, just a dish. I mean, she is unbelievable. Well, she gives a surprise birth at the end of the movie. Naturally, she's torn to pieces, and this little alien or this little sea monster just pops out of her. Very sad, especially given Emma Samms is a babe, or was before this thing popped out of her. The original one had a happy ending. Not the okay. Burnt Offerings. She goes back. I got to go check on Mrs. Allardyce, and you're sitting there watching. Said, "Don't go back in the house," and you're screaming. And Oliver Reed says, "No, you can't." Ken says, "No, it's just an old lady. I got to make sure she's all right." And of course, the next time you see Oliver Reed, he's catapulted out that top floor window by Mrs. Allardyce. And they had this plant thing too, very, very scary. Planet of the Vampires, Giallo, Dario Argento. Very surprise twist ending where the two people you're rooting for, it ends up they're the vampires. And you're just sort of sitting like, what? If you've never seen Planet of the Vampires, very twisty ending, very sort of erotic, stylish Italian movie. And of course, Rosemary's Baby, the Satan's Got to Be Born. So those are the ones that first came to my mind. But yeah, I had Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The Omen on my list too.
I'm sorry I stole your answer. I want to stick with some older ones because I definitely don't want to spoil anything relatively new, like in the last 5 or 10 years. So a lot of great movies with great twists where the villain wins, but I didn't want to ruin too much for folks. I'm like, if you haven't watched these yet, I don't know what to say. These are classics for sure.
Yeah, Planet of the Vampires, I think it's from 1965. Burn Offerings, I think the late 70s. And the Emma Sam's Humanoids from the Deep is, I think, from 1996.
Definitely love those. I love that you mentioned Rosemary's Baby too. That is one film I compulsively watch when it's on. It doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. And everybody's like, not this movie again, because they know the music where the movie opens. Yeah, I love it. Great ending as well. All right, Ken's, what do you got?
Well, first of all, you mentioned something that I gotta circle back to. You mentioned Johnny Depp and falling into the bed. I think he's got bigger problems now with shit in the bed.
Yeah,
so,
right,
yeah. True. Touche. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
I've been following that. I'm like, oh my word, what in the heck?
That's wild.
Yes.
That's wild. And I don't know. I don't get it. But listen, I thought of two cool movies. Seven. He doesn't win he dies but that was part of his plan. And he wanted this to happen. So he created this whole thing, and it was just an ultimate crime. And Kevin Spacey, I wasn't rooting for him. I was curious about him. I think I mentioned this in one of the earlier shows about being able to go into that room and just read all those journals he had and diaries and whatnot. That's wild. But his whole plan worked in the end. And we never get to know what was in the box, what's in the fucking box. There's that. And then the other film was the first Saw. He wins, he's in the room the whole time, and Carrie Ells has got to hack up his leg and to get out, and the killer is there in the room the whole time. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then I think the last one, and I'm pretty sure it was like who done it type thing, was Devil, when they're in the elevator, and then the devil is kind of possessing the old woman. You don't know who it's going to be, and then she's in the end. So I really like that movie Devil. I thought that was a good film because you're trying to guess what the hell's going on here. Good stuff, Muse. I like that topic a lot. Is there any you want to add that we didn't touch on?
Isn't that Gwyneth Paltrow's head in the box?
I was thinking that. We do find out what's in the box, unfortunately.
No, we never find out what's in the box. They never say.
I thought it was her head.
I thought it was
Gwyneth Paltrow's head. Now.
He says it. He says it.
Oh.
But we don't know what's in the box because Morgan Freeman never says it out loud. And Brad Pitt just ends up killing him because he freaks out. So you never know. Did he win?
You can tell it's been a while since I've seen that one. Wow.
Yeah, go watch it, man. Tell Jamie that you guys are gonna watch it tonight.
Yeah, we got a great easy going film tonight. Don't worry, it'll be fine.
yeah, that's a really easygoing film for the Muse household there.
Right, compared to what I'm usually watching. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, it is a great film. I do thoroughly enjoy it. It's probably one of my favorite films, definitely in my top 20. It's weird because I like Brad Pitt movies. It's so weird.
I love them too, honestly.
Yeah. What's that, Chris?
What struck me about that film is you never really got a grasp on what city that was.
Oh, I think they did mention it in the beginning. I think they mentioned it. It might have been New York. I don't know, but that's something that when Muse watches it tonight, she can tell us. Yeah. She can send us a text.
Your homework assignment, Muse.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, you got a review for us tonight, Chris?
I do not. But I in place of that, I've seen a few good movies lately that I want to recommend. They're a little bit different. So maybe I can just give little capsule reviews of 3 or 4 films. the 13th Cross, starring an old friend of ours, Jerkowitz.
Yerkowitz.
I tell you, it's weird. She plays a 15-year-old seductive vixen in this, and I did point out in the review the actual actress is older than 15, but she seduces this sort of on the edge guy. You don't know what he did, but he was a really bad guy. You don't know if he molested kids. That's sort of the implication, but he has found God and he's atoning, and this angel comes down, or he thinks is an angel, and tells him, this is what you get to do to be forgiven. And he is given 13 names of child rapists who either got off or got insufficient sentences. And his job is to track them each down one by one and assassinate them. And so he, in the midst of doing that, he befriends this girl on the run from an abusive boyfriend, played by our good friends Chelsea Jerkowitz, isn't it? Or is it? Yeah. And
Yerkowitz.
Yes. Depends which
say
part
fast. You got to say fast.
Yeah. So her, as she seduces him or tries to seduce him, see, he's a sleek killer. He's a good assassin. But the more he lets his primal urges go and the more he gets attracted to this 15-year-old, the killings get sloppier and sloppier and sloppier. And you'll see how that all ends. Really, really good movie. Freeway, Billy Drago. You guys remember Billy Drago? Yeah. He's the ultimate bad guy. Well, he's a Catholic priest in this. So this was a good Easter movie. Yeah, well, ex-Catholic priest. He went totally insane. And now he believes the apocalypse is at hand. He calls Richard Belzer up, who's a radio talk show host. And he's always on the phone with Richard Belzer when he goes in the freeway, takes his gun out and blows away passing motorists. And he does this over and over and over again. And Diane Flugel, or Darlene Flugel, who is you might remember her from The Snitch and To Live and Die in LA, the girl who was the informant. But beautiful actress. She plays a beautiful nurse. Her husband was killed by this priest, and now she's got a one-woman crusade to find him. And so she gets a car, gets on the highway, and she's trying to find Billy Drago as he's blowing people away. Sad note, beautiful actress. What's typical story taken from us so young. She got Alzheimer's at a really young age and passed away, leaving a couple of kids and a husband. So that's another good one. And then another one that it's kind of interesting, given the stuff that's popping up in the headlines lately. A Dark Light about it's weird. The movie begins with, you think a mom is blowing away her husband and her like 6 or 7 year old little girl. That's what you think. Now that's not quite what happened. And then it's one of those movies that goes back 3 days, and then you see what necessitated all this. And it's old farmhouse by the cornfield, lights in the sky, something's landing in the cornfield, alien-like things are coming into the house. They're on the roof. They seem to be interested in taking the little girl, and nobody believes the mother. Mother gets a shotgun, and she's trying to protect her daughter. The ex-husband comes back, says, hey, you're going crazy. I'm going to go to the court and get our daughter back because you obviously are totally insane. And no one's going to believe they're these monsters. And you'll see them at the end trying to take her little girl in a spaceship and fly her away. Really, really interesting movie. And I say that, you can see a lot of headlines. You've seen them now about people seeing strange lights in the sky, about Air Force pilots who have to pass psychological evals to keep their job, absolutely swearing that they're seeing spaceships as they're flying their little jet fighters. And you're going to see a lot more headlines with this. We'll probably talk about that on a future show sometime, but what is exactly going on? And with that, all that coming out, this was kind of an interesting movie because they mentioned something in this movie. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you're thinking, if it's not aliens from another planet, then what is it? And this movie has a suggestion what that might be. And so those are the three movies I'll leave you with. If you get they're on Tubi, watch them. The Billy Drago one, Freeway, is and there are a lot of movies called Freeway. Make sure it's one of Billy Drago. I think it's 1988. That's all the way from 1988. So you might have seen it late night on Showtime or HBO back in the day. But and what a great actor he is. We don't talk about him enough.
Yeah, I remember him. All right, well, let's bring it on down. Chelsea Yurkowicz, we got to get her back on the show. It would be the third time, and that would be a record.
The 13th
so, yeah, we'll check it out. I remember she mentioned that she was working on that show. So yeah, let's bring it on home. Good stuff. I love seeing your guys' faces. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and follow our individual accounts. CJ Zisi, Halo Girl 24. 23, 24, 21,
22.
What is it?
Right
22.
there, 22.
One of the numbers. And MonsterMash Ken. I do just want to shout out everybody that's listening to the show, the podcast, share it with your friends. Thank you so much. Do you guys have any quick shout outs that you want to say?
No, I want to shout out and congratulate my friend Kirk, who retired from the FBI a couple of months ago. And it is great to have him in the real world now, away from the government, because he can say a lot of things he couldn't say 2 months ago. And big horror fan. He has seen the show. I don't know if he'll watch this one. He will, because I'll tell him to. But glad to have him as a compadre in horror. So big shout out to him and congratulations. I don't remember if I congratulated him when he actually retired. I don't think so, because but heroic service, and he was a bigwig. He wasn't just a schmuck agent. He was like headquarters type, So he probably knows about those UFO things.
Oh, we'll get into that show soon. What about you, Muse?
Just want to say it's glad to be back live and shouting out John and anybody else that's in here that's just maybe being quiet or what have you. We're just glad to be back live and hanging out with all the unusual suspects. And just glad to be back talking horror with you guys.
All right. So I got our official mascot other than the goat. This is Bluey. Say hi, Bluey. You're on YouTube. Say hi. Yeah, I see your one blue eye. Anyway, I'm MonsterMash Ken. With me is Muse and Chris the Creature Zisi. You're listening to Where the Scary Things Are. Till next time, keep it scary, my friends.